That is what this is about. We do have the power. That is true. The question is whether we're willing to use it or not. And our ability to use it depends on our willingness to stick to it. I don't ask you in the midterm elections, because I know it's not as exciting as having somebody run for president, especially the first president of your generation. I don't ask you to go out and sleep on floors and all that kind of stuff. But we have got to make sure that New Mexico doesn't slide back into a red state. You know, people move ahead in New Mexico when we've had Democrats running. And that's not going to happen if we have Republicans running it. So we really do have to pay attention to Congress. We've got to pay attention to the state legislature. We've got to pay attention to the governor's office, the Secretary of State's office. That stuff matters a lot. And it's not as exciting when somebody runs for president and we're going to change the world, but it has to be done. Being in a democracy requires obligations, not just freedoms. We always talk about freedom in this country. I hate talking about freedom in this country. The reason I don't like to talk about freedom is because people always want to talk about their rights and they never want to talk about their responsibilities. You know, people who serve in the armed forces always say that freedom isn't free. Well, it's not. They often end up paying the price for that. Freedom isn't free. What freedom demands, and what freedom demands of us, and what democracy demands of us, is working at it. You know, democracy is a human invention. Like every other human invention, if you don't nurture it, it dies. And it has. There are places in the world where democracy came in, and then democracy went out. And that is a huge problem. Nicaragua is one of them. Nicaragua, the long civil war ended. It was an election. It was a fair election. And people traded back and forth. The parties traded. And recently there was an election, and then that was the last one they've had that's honest. Venezuela is another example. They had one election. The rest of them were all fixed. So there are ways that democracy can be lost, and this country is not immune from that. And it depends on us to make sure that that doesn't happen. And the way to do that is to use the electoral process, to make sure, as the Secretary of State was talking about, there's a reasonable campaign finance law, to make sure that we have a Democratic president, because our Supreme Court has been hijacked by activist right-wing judges, and we need to undo that, and only the Supreme Court can be appointed by the president.